I think Bitcoin could reach $1 million by the end of this year, and in this video I want to explain to you why I'm making such an outrageous claim. Let's get started. The very first thing that I want to show you is something that I experienced in my career in finance. I worked in finance for about 10 years, and I worked at a brokerage while a lot of people were going for the weed hype. People were thinking that weed is going to be legalized, so all of these companies who are producing weed are going to eventually get a lot bigger because people are going to want to buy their product. And of course, because they have the product already and the Canadian government was going to legalize marijuana at the time, they thought that these stocks would rise. So we can see here, this is a chart for weed canopy growth. I worked at the brokerage from January 2017 all the way till about right here, about 2019, at some point in 2019. So I was working at this brokerage, and I would be dealing with people who wanted to open their accounts, who wanted to set up their accounts, who wanted to learn more about the markets. And at this time, this is when the world kind of started figuring out. At this time, so many people wanted to open accounts because they wanted to get exposure to weed stocks. And at this time, August 2018, this is a reverse, this stock has been reverse split, I believe 1 or 2 times. But at this time, in August, the lowest price of the stock was $323 after the split, and the top was $628. So this stock doubled in a month. And what really fueled this was people opening their accounts, their brokerage accounts, and wanting to buy as much of this stock as they could get. And they thought this stock was going to, at the time it was, I believe, $60 was the high, but they did a split where people thought, where people got a certain amount of shares in exchange for their current number of shares, but that's besides the point. So people thought that this stock would go to $100, $200, $300, and they would just hold on to it and they'd get rich quick. And because they had access to this stock in their brokerage account, they could buy as much of it as they wanted to. They could get a line of credit and they could move that money to their brokerage account. They could get a home equity line of credit and they could move that money into their brokerage account. And it was so easy for them to just keep buying this stock because they had a brokerage account. Now, let's go into what I think could cause Bitcoin to do the exact same thing. So if we just look at the chart for Bitcoin, we can see it had a cycle like what we saw from canopy growth, but the cycle just keeps happening over and over again. With canopy growth, it happened once, it fell down, and it doesn't seem like it'll ever recover. But with Bitcoin, if we zoom in, I'll just zoom in here, just to show you exactly what I'm trying to make the point of here. You can see here that in 2013, Bitcoin's price shot up and it came back down. And then again in 2017, it shot up and it came back down. And again in 2021, it shot up and then it came back down by 2022. So it took a little longer. But keep in mind, every single one of these cycles, there was no access to people buying Bitcoin in their brokerage accounts. All these hype cycles, all these cycles of the price going up, coming back down, price going up, coming back down, price going up, coming back down. All of these happened before Bitcoin was available to be purchased in brokerage accounts. And as you may know, in January 2024, the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, made it easier for people to buy Bitcoin in their brokerage accounts. They could, it was somewhere around here. They made the announcement in January 2024 for people to be able to buy Bitcoin in their brokerage accounts. And since that announcement, Bitcoin's price went up and it came back down a bit, but then it never came back down to those levels again. It never dropped back down because the amount of money that could go into Bitcoin had suddenly exploded. The amount of money that could buy Bitcoin had suddenly exploded to massive, massive numbers. So people who have brokerage accounts, people who have stocks, they already have savings, and now they could buy Bitcoin. In the past, the only way to do this would be to go through some sketchy exchange that you have no idea what they're doing in the back end. A lot of them weren't regulated. Coinbase became regulated. They were regulated for a while, but you've never dealt with Coinbase. So why would you want to give your money to this random entity that you've never heard of, that you've never experienced their services before. Nobody that you know has experienced their services. They've only been around for a few years. Why would you want to give them your money? So a lot of people were held back because of this specifically, because they didn't trust the exchanges. They didn't trust the people that they were expected to give their money to. And then they were supposed to get back this digital asset. There was a lot of confusion. There was a lot less information out there to actually understand Bitcoin. But now it's completely different. So the reason why I think that Bitcoin could reach that $1 million within the next year, within the next few years, I don't know if it's going to happen. I can't guarantee anything. Nobody can guarantee anything. But the reason why I think it could happen is because of this availability, this availability of this new asset that anyone can buy in their brokerage account from the comfort of their own home. They don't have to send a wire transfer to some sketchy company that they've never heard of. Now they can use the brokerage account that they're used to buy the Bitcoin ETF and have BlackRock custody it for them. BlackRock is the one essentially backing this ETF. They're using their reputation to back this Bitcoin ETF. And think about what this does. Think about how many people this opens up Bitcoin to that it wasn't available to before. I've actually had conversations with people who are buying Bitcoin now because of the ETF. I don't think that's the best way to hold your Bitcoin, but I mean, for people who just want exposure, I think it's okay. You're not getting all of the benefits of Bitcoin, but it's better than nothing. It's better than just holding on to cash. So all these people who never had access to Bitcoin before, they've heard the stories, they've heard that this thing is going to go up. Now they have access to buying it in the brokerage accounts that they're familiar with, in the accounts that they know will be there, the accounts that they trust, the accounts that they think are backed by their government. So they have the ability to join in on this massive rush of the price going up. And eventually this will happen. What we're going through right now is called consolidation. This is where buyers are able to find supply, sellers are able to find demand. So sellers are able to sell their Bitcoin. If somebody has a ton of Bitcoin and they think that the price is coming down, they're able to sell it pretty easily. They can get rid of it for $63,172. Back here, there was no consolidation at this point. The consolidation happened here. So this is consolidation where the price is just moving sideways. Who knows how long this could happen for? For all we know, it could happen for the next 5 years. Maybe Bitcoin's price stays at $63,000 for the next 5 years. I don't think that's very likely because of the fact that sellers will eventually run out, but nobody knows. Nobody can tell you what the short term is going to be. Nobody can tell you what the short term price will be in a year. Nobody can tell you what it'll be in 2 years. All we know is that historically, Bitcoin's price has risen every 4 years. And now more people can take advantage of that because of the ETFs, because Bitcoin is now available in their brokerage accounts. So we'll go back to the point in the beginning here. Bitcoin's price could reach $1 million by the end of this cycle. It could reach $1 million by the end of maybe, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked if it reached $1 million by the end of 2024, because I know that anything can happen. And the reason why this could happen is because sellers are running out. For example, Germany sold 50,000 Bitcoin at the beginning of, I believe, July. They sold 50,000 Bitcoin. They had 50,000 Bitcoin. They sold them for something like $54,000. And now they're at a loss of $10,000 per Bitcoin. So if they wanted to buy back that Bitcoin, they'd have to pay $63,000 or more for that Bitcoin. They probably will have to pay a lot more because the amount of Bitcoin available to be bought at any point in time is generally a lot lower than what a massive whale would want to buy. So if Germany wanted to buy back that 50,000 Bitcoin, they'd have to go and find multiple buyers who are willing to sell them Bitcoin at whatever price, whatever amount they want to buy. And let's say if they wanted to just put in a market order, they probably wouldn't find 50,000 Bitcoin available for sale at this price. So what these large whales and these large institutions do is they go through something called an OTC desk. OTC is over the counter. Over the counter desks take a small fee from you, and they find someone who's willing to sell the amount of Bitcoin that you're willing to buy so that there's not that big of a impact on the market. If they can't buy Bitcoin, if they can't find Bitcoin at a price that's available today, maybe they'll have to offer a little bit more. Maybe they have to offer a little bit more. But the good thing here in their eyes is that they can get their entire fill. So let's say Germany wanted to buy 50,000 Bitcoin. and some whale wants to sell 50,000 Bitcoin, they go through this OTC desk. Now this OTC desk can sell Germany 50,000 Bitcoin at, let's say, the current market price, maybe a little lower, maybe a little higher. They could sell all these Bitcoin to them and they could have it all done in one shot. But the point here is that the people who own Bitcoin and want to sell are running out. The amount of people who own Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is finite, the amount of people who own Bitcoin and want to sell are running out. The supply of Bitcoin, the available supply, is decreasing. At the same time, demand is rising. Demand will keep rising until everybody's demand for Bitcoin is fulfilled. And as we may know, as you've been following if you've been following my content for a while, you know that demand for money is unlimited, because money gives you options. It gives you the ability to do whatever you want in the future. So if you have some form of money, let's say you have $1 million and you want to buy a house, maybe the house that you actually want is $1.5 million. So now you have to accumulate $1.5 million. And now, once you buy that house, the vanity of it runs out, and now you want a $2 million house. So you want more money. You need more money to actually buy that house. So the amount of money that you want, the amount of money that people want, is unlimited. So essentially, the most basic thing here is that demand for Bitcoin is unlimited, supply of Bitcoin is limited. Demand for Bitcoin is being sparked up by these ETFs. People who had never had access to Bitcoin before can now buy Bitcoin. But supply is probably not going to keep increasing, because there's a finite number of Bitcoin available to be bought. Of course, the people who own thousands of Bitcoin, they can just dump all they have, but eventually it'll be bought up because everybody has access to Bitcoin now. Some of the wealthiest people in the world have access to Bitcoin. Some of the poorest people in the world have access to Bitcoin. Anyone can buy Bitcoin, but the amount of Bitcoin that's available will always stay the same, meaning that at some point, we're going to face a supply shock. At some point, there won't be enough Bitcoin available because the people who own it, there will be enough people owning it that don't want to sell until let's say $1 million, until $10 million, until $20 million. And now there's nothing available to be bought at anything lower than that price. I'm not saying that that'll happen overnight. For all we know, it could happen overnight because, let's say, some massive entity, a sovereign nation, a sovereign wealth fund, goes ahead and buys every single Bitcoin available on every single exchange to be sold, and now there's nothing available to be bought. So what future buyers are going to have to do is they're going to have to convince new buyers to enter the market. And this is where price discovery happens. So if somebody wants to buy a certain amount of Bitcoin, and let's say that amount of Bitcoin isn't available, they'll keep increasing their bids. They'll keep increasing the amount that they're willing to offer for Bitcoin. And let's say at some point it's at $70,000. Nothing is available. They'll increase to $70,001. Nothing's available. $70,002, $71,000, $73,000, $75,000. I think there will be a point where nobody's willing to sell their Bitcoin for under $100,000. Nobody's willing to sell their Bitcoin for under $1 million, because more and more people understand this. More and more people put Bitcoin away for 5, 10, 20, 50 years into the future. And you're going to have to wait for Bitcoin to reach their target, reach whatever their target is. Sometimes people don't even have a dollar target for their Bitcoin. They just want to hold on to it because it's the best asset in the world, and they want to pass it on to their children and their grandchildren and their great grandchildren. So more and more Bitcoin is being accumulated by these people. Less and less Bitcoin is held by people who don't truly understand what it is, and they're just trading in and out. What does this mean? Over time, there's going to be a supply shock. There's going to be a time where no Bitcoin is available, and nobody's willing to sell you Bitcoin at the current price, and you're going to have to offer more and more and more for it. This is what happens with a finite asset. There's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. Anyone who understands Bitcoin always wants more. From what I know, people who have hundreds of Bitcoin, people who have thousands of Bitcoin, they still want more. I've had conversations with people who want more regardless of how much they have, because that's just how money works. They know that this will give them purchasing power in the future, and purchasing power is essentially power. You can buy whatever you want to, you can pay for whatever you want to, and right now you're getting a discount on that money. You're able to exchange pieces of paper that are designed to decrease in value for a record on a ledger that will constantly increase in value in terms of the paper that we use today, because only 21 million units of currency on that ledger. Each one of those units of currencies can be divided infinitely. It's infinitely divisible. So if you own 1 out of 21 million, regardless, you'll own that percentage of the entire network's wealth. So more people are catching on, more people will figure it out, more people will want to own Bitcoin in the next 10, 20, 30 years. And they'll be able to buy a lot less because in terms of dollars, in terms of everything else, the price of Bitcoin will rise forever. $1 million to me is just a start. I think we'll reach $1 million because of how the Federal Reserve is decreasing interest rates right now. The Federal Reserve dropped interest rates by 0.5%, giving borrowers more of an incentive to buy whatever assets they want to add fuel to the inflation fire that we already have going. So what they're going to do is they're going to borrow money from their bank. They're going to use their real estate property as collateral. They're going to borrow money using a HELOC, and they're going to spend on whatever they want to. They have more of an incentive for doing so. The Federal Reserve is going to continue decreasing interest rates. As the Federal Reserve decreases interest rates, more and more people are incentivized to buy houses, and inflation starts up again. I see Bitcoin as an escape from this entire system. Of course, you're going to be impacted when interest rates go up, interest rates come down, but over the long term, Bitcoin has nothing to do with the current financial system. It's essentially a parallel system. So as in the current system, as the amount of currency in the ledger keeps increasing, in the parallel system, in the Bitcoin system, the amount of currency in the ledger stays exactly the same. It stays at 21 million no matter what. So if we use this old system, the current system that we're participating in, the fiat currency system, if we use it to value the Bitcoin system, the value will continue to go up and more people are catching on. And this is what's going to lead to that $1 million price. This is what's going to lead to Bitcoin's price going to $1 million. Like I said, I think it could happen by the end of this cycle. For all we know, all of this cash inflows, all of these cash inflows from the BlackRock ETF, from the Fidelity ETF, from the Van Eck ETF, Franklin Templeton, all these companies, the flows that are coming in are all fighting for the exact same 21 million Bitcoin. There are companies that are buying thousands of Bitcoin. Michael Saylor's company, they own 1.2 or 1.3% of the total supply, and that's going to keep increasing. There are more and more companies that are attempting to put their treasury into Bitcoin, and you can't blame them because they know for a fact that this thing is just going to keep increasing in value. People are going to want more and more of it. So to them, it's an escape from the current financial system as well. It's an escape from inflation. It's an escape from having to think of what to do with your money immediately, because if you don't do anything, it's just going to fade away into nothing. So by the end of this cycle, I think we could see $1 million Bitcoin. I think the ETFs are going to add a lot of fuel to the fire that we already have going. We're already consolidating at $63,000. Price is moving sideways. When the sellers run out, Bitcoin's price is going to start rising and rising and rising. It could happen overnight for all we know. It could happen over a year. It could happen over 10 years. Some people think that it won't happen for another 10, 15, 20 years, but I think they're wrong. I think the nominal value of Bitcoin can easily go to $1 million by the end of the cycle.